bring onto the screen George Siosi Samuels, who is the founder of a company called Honā, and he's going to talk to us about that. Hey, George, how are you doing?
Hey, Jimmy. Good to see you again.
Are you in
Hello,
Mexico
everybody.
now, or are you in Panama City?
No, I'm in Mexico.
Okay, back in Mexico. Have a margarita for all of us here in New York City. We miss you. We just saw George at our last week's event we had in Miami, but he decided he was getting himself back to Margaritaville instead of joining us in New York City. So we're going to do this as a presentation from George that I'm going to facilitate a bit through conversation. And so he's going to talk to you about his company and platform to help you, all of you, be more accountable to the goals you have in life, because we want you all to have goals and to achieve them. So George, take it away.
Sure, thanks a lot. Let me just share my screen with everybody. All right, and please confirm if you guys can see the screen all right.
We can.
Perfect. So first up, Honā, if you're wondering what the name actually means, it's actually a Sanskrit word for to become, but we actually use it like the word honor. So the way you would actually say it is Honā, but we do say Honā because it sounds more like the word honor and works well for when it comes to honoring your commitments. So of course, as Jimmy mentioned, my name is George Siosi Samuels. I'm the founder for Honā. I am also accompanied in terms of my team with Siggy, who's based in the Netherlands, but is originally from Iceland. He is a BSV specialist, but also a very strong entrepreneur and ex-executive of some other billion-dollar companies as well. And so it's an absolute honor to have him on our team. And then we have Ashish, who's coming from Bangalore, and he is our head of community, but used to work for PayPal. So in terms of how Honā began, it actually started with me solving a personal problem back in 2016. And this was with a group called The Pack, which formed into a productivity accelerator and is still running till today. So the problem I had was something called lone wolf syndrome. If I was there, I'd be asking for a show of hands if anybody's ever felt like a lone wolf in business.
Here, I'll ask for you,
this
George.
was the thing that we were solving for.
I'll ask for you, George.
Then.
Raise your hand if you have felt like a lone wolf in business. Oh, you got a good like 40% of the people raising their hands.
Okay, thanks for the feedback, Jimmy. So this then led to helping to solve this problem for others through this productivity accelerator. And in 2020, because of the pandemic, we had even more lone wolf types sort of come out of the woodworks and also return to this accelerator and community that we had. So because I've been a Bitcoiner since 2013, we actually decided to sort of combine the goal setting activities that we had in this group with a Slack prototype that involved staking some money against your goals. So essentially, if you would put some money, bet against yourself to see if you would hit the goal or not. If you did hit it, you get the money back. Otherwise, it would go to an accountability buddy that was chosen. So we tested this out with a few users. People were paying. We wanted to validate the idea and realize, okay, well, people are continuing to come back to this. We might have something. This then led to actually pitching to none other than Tim Draper. If you're not familiar with him, he's a well-known billionaire VC supporter of entrepreneurship in general. And we came first place in the pitching competition out of about 80 global startups. And some of the other startups involved terraforming Venus. So it was quite a pleasant surprise when we ended up coming first place.
Yeah, you beat out Venus.
Yes, yes we did. So the general problem that we observed over the last 5 years was essentially a consistent lack of accountability leading to failed commitments. And so, we decided to bring all together what we had learned over the 5 years dealing with remote workers, especially, both who were working at large enterprise and also who were these lone wolf entrepreneur types, and decided to essentially package everything we learned into Honā. So Honā is a social accountability platform that helps people learn from their mistakes, embrace accountability, and take consistent action. In terms of phase one, in starting out with this, we are focused on these lone wolf entrepreneur types, right? The solo entrepreneurs. So we help them create and track commitments, increase their success rates through accountability buddies and financial stakes. This is where some of the BSV aspects come in, earning rewards and sharing wins publicly, and then building an honor profile and on a score, something that we'll touch on in the future, probably at the next CoinGeek event in New York in October.
Be there.
Mm-hmm. And so although we began as a habit tracker, we are now moving beyond that. And so phase two involves us actually using Honā for coaches and creators. So this is where they start to bring in their own communities and put on their own challenges. And we help with the tracking of that to actually prove for these coaches and creators how well their communities are doing when it comes to achieving and essentially proving their work. So for coaches and creators, you can create your own groups of challenges, track the group progress, and actually prove results. And we actually have a challenge that's happening right now with another BSV app community called BitPost. It's a 30-day blogging challenge. If you actually just go to Google and look up BitPost 30 or even Twitter, you should find this challenge that's currently underway. And it's been very fascinating to watch to see how people are showing up and using the platform to blog for 30 days. And with that money also being staked. So this is just a list of the features that I've kind of touched on in the last couple of slides. Some ones of note include sponsoring others. So as people are actually committing and putting up their progress updates, you can sponsor their efforts. So if they hit their goal, the money that you've sponsored them with goes back to them only if they succeed. Otherwise, it goes back to you if they don't happen to. You can also honor others' progress. So this has to do with values. So if you're a company and you were looking at actually utilizing this, you can put in the values of your company and actually honor others for specific activities that exhibit those values. Of course, joining the group challenges and then the use of micropayments. Some other things we have coming up in the future include splitting earnings with potential charities, getting insights from behavior patterns, and even the possibility of earning NFT rewards, because this is something that members have already been requesting.
Hey, George, I have a question. What's the general amount of money people have staked on their own goals or other people have sponsored to encourage someone to achieve their goals? I'm just curious.
Yes, so it's anywhere from between $5 to $100, but we're seeing between about $20 to $50. At the beginning, of course, people are testing things out, so you'll see them usually do, the $5 route. But then as they get more confident and they learn more about their ability to hit goals, you'll see the larger commitments come in. And we're also, it's always surprising to see how people use this. One person is using it for a year commitment where he's tracking his daily trading activities and sharing those learnings with others. So this is a fascinating one to see. So general benefits, of course, include improved consistency, creating that culture of accountability, which is actually sort of the hidden aspect to ensuring accountability in general, because it can be a scary word for a lot of people, and then increasing the success rates. We also focus on the journey versus the destination, because if you look at goal tracking and habit tracking apps, there's actually a lot of valuable data around failure, and we believe that there's just not a lot being done with that right now. And so we want to turn that failure data into better insights. And in terms of how we're different, well, we're at a BSV conference, and so we're all about the micro. And we believe that, consistency breeds success, and we want people to focus on all of those small actions. So there is a focus on these micro actions, micro learning. So again, we were talking about that failure data and how we can actually help people learn more from their own habits and behavior. The micropayments aspect, this ties in very well with our focus on the micro, which of course includes things like BSV, and then the micro communities. Because we've also found over the last 5 years dealing with remote teams online and remote entrepreneurs, the smaller the group, the more intimate and the higher level of psychological safety. And this is also what leads to trust. So we actually intentionally create these smaller groups so that people can feel safer when sharing if they're not willing to share publicly to everybody. And so in terms of the opportunity here, we're really looking to do to the online learning industry what Stripe did to financial services. And let me explain. So Stripe, as opposed to competing, they kind of sit in the middle of platform partners, financial partners, the customers, merchants, and they complement the growth of a lot of these businesses. And in the online learning space, well, you essentially see a lot of these platforms that help people with their formal learning, but still suffer from issues around completion rates. And so what we want to do is provide a way to embed ourselves and complement these platforms so that we can assist people with those completion rates. And that assistance comes through the way that we implement accountability. And so in terms of the overall market, you're looking at a combination of three different ones that we are complementing, which include online learning, $357 billion market, workforce performance management, and then online coaching platforms. And so this is essentially how we're encompassing all that. And whether it's formal or informal learning, that's what we're assisting with. In terms of traction, we did get, of course, the initial pre-seed investment from Tim Draper and Draper University Ventures. We have around 800 users in private beta. Our internal goal was to, once we hit 1,000, then we're going to go into public beta. And based on what's been happening since about May of this year, we look to hit the 1,000 by CoinGeek next month. And so we're hoping to time that with the public beta release. And then average month-to-month growth since May has been about 90%. Now, this is the most interesting and the slide that I love the most. This is just showing what's happening inside our platform already. So on the left, you've got commitment examples. And so we've got professional commitments, which include, as I mentioned, the trading. We've got people putting up progress updates around creating their first startup or another one. And then on the personal side, this is the most common for when people are starting out in Honā, basic sort of personal wellness type of commitments. So the elliptical daily, walking around the neighborhood for 15 minutes per day. And then we've got another here doing fixing their back. So on the right, I remember being told one time that if you can create a product that elicits the emotion of love, then you may be doing something right. So this is just an example of love for our product that has already been shouted out publicly, and we've kept it here. So I haven't included a slide on one particular story, and that's because this particular success story came from somebody who used Honā to actually overcome an addiction problem. Now, we're not saying, definitely not saying that, Honā is going to solve any addiction problems, but it's always interesting for us to see how people are using the platform. And we thought that it was definitely a testament to, implementing the basics in a way that people can leverage. And so in the future, we're looking to hit 1 billion micro actions, which obviously translates into 1 billion transactions on chain by 2030. And I'm just going to leave you with this quote from one of my favorite martial artists, Bruce Lee. Knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do. And so with Honā, we want to help the world both apply and do.
George, you're always so thoughtful. I always love hearing from George. I always feel like a better human being every time I see and meet George. Any questions for George? Anyone got any questions for George? If not, I have a question. George, do you have a personal goal that you're using Honā to fulfill?
Yeah, for sure. Well, the interesting thing is that our team is actually using it internally for our own goals. So we're on the hunt for our next. We're fundraising right now. So we're essentially tracking all of our investor outreach aspects. So really, the current goal right now is getting the monthly investor updates out and hitting that investor goal. So that's what I'm currently using it for personally. Yeah.
All right. Yes. Question.
How did you meet up with Tim Draper, or how did you find out about it?
Sure. Well, I'll repeat. The question is, how did you get connected or meet Tim Draper and the Tim Draper Institute?
For sure. So actually, that came from a previous client with another company I had, where it's called Draper Startup House. And as part of that network, we're connected to Tim Draper. So I'd heard about this program that they're doing for entrepreneurs every quarter, I believe. And so somebody said, hey, you've got Honā that's about to start with that idea. I think you should apply and pitch your idea. So I said, okay. And yeah, that went in, made it all the way to the final rounds of pitching, and got to speak to Tim Draper that way.
Right. Yes, Hash.
George, it's absolutely fascinating. My question is coming to you from a corporate lens. I love the idea of incentivizing and tracking, say, a team's behavior, and in which case your platform actually starts to influence culture.
Yes.
Any thoughts about how you may also, again, for us, corporate meetings, how we may also track, like, call it unintended consequences. We've done
Yeah.
incentives before and been surprised by, oh, I didn't think that would happen. You know what I mean? Like the other side of it.
Yeah. Sorry, it kind of just faded out at the end. Could you
wants
just
to know-
expand on the unintended consequences
Yes. Are you
aspect?
thinking of tracking unintended consequences from goal incentivizing?
Yep. And sorry, does he have any examples of things that he's experienced?
Okay, so let's say I work for an accounting firm.
Let's say he works for an accounting firm because he does.
Because I do.
Yep.
I do. And tracking billable hours
Yeah.
is really
Incentivizing people to
important.
sending their timesheets.
Right,
Yeah.
timesheets and billable
Yeah,
hours.
yeah.
Now,
Yes.
at the same time, we want our people to be efficient.
Yes.
So all of a sudden, if you're tracking billable hours and the billable hours are going way up, all the whips are bleeding billable hours, and then we're saying, well, wait a minute, what's happening to the budgets for these engagements?
Right.
So there's an unintended consequence by only rewarding one side of it, which is billable hours, and not watching efficiency and
Yes.
recovery. Then
Yes.
you can end up with a problem. But and again, maybe you're not there yet because
Yep.
the corporate might be a little bit further out. But
Yep.
again, I'm just super fascinated that you have a platform that could help with influencing culture.
Yep. So 100%. On our roadmap, actually, we have 4 phases. We're in phase 2 right now of that roadmap, but the phase 4 is corporate enterprise, and we were looking to get into that next year. However, exactly like you said, we've already had corporates that we're talking to who are fascinated by what we're doing. And the unintended consequences is definitely a key part here. When you actually include money aspect, right, that changes behavior. So in terms of the rewards, there are financial incentives, but you also need to have the non-financial incentives. We actually, at the moment, are leveraging these group challenges as a way to also make it fun for people to even want to track. Because the other issue with this is, at the moment, when it comes to productivity, you can only sort of improve what is tracked. And a lot of people sometimes, they can find that the tracking and the documenting part can get in the way of the doing. So what we do at the moment with Honā is that we're trying to keep things at a high level, and especially for managers when we move into there, whereby you're looking at the bigger picture goals and objectives, and then through the platform, hopefully by making it fun, and this is sort of like a Slack approach, you get people to want to be honest and document the right things. There's an ability where we have these accountability buddies. So imagine that being one of the managers. So they can approve or sort of seek a review of certain things that you've put in. And again, the unintended consequences is you don't want that to mar the relationships between people. So this is actually about proof of work. And the interesting part is that things like BSV and on-chain already has that from a systemic standpoint. And here we're coming from the cultural aspect. And I'm glad you mentioned culture. So we're trying to use the tool to influence a culture of accountability that also doesn't mar the relationship. So the dignity aspect.
Got it. Well, we have to wrap this up, but I'm going to answer your question in a different way. As a former lawyer and law firm partner who lived in the billable hour world, I would say the problem isn't Honā. The problem is the billable hour business model.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, that as well.
I'll leave it at that.